Welcome, everyone, to the Administration, Operations, and Budget Committee of Tuesday, August 19th, 2025. We'll begin our agenda with the first item, which is the minutes from the previous meeting of August 5th, 2025. May I have a motion to move it?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any corrections? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have under new business, which is item 2, routine items. Amendment with the MPCA to host an AmeriCorps member from Minnesota Green Corps Climate and Resiliency and direct resident engagement from October 13th, 2025 through September 4th of 2026. Do I have a motion for this?
So moved.
So moved and seconded. Commissioner Fernando, you'd like to speak to this?
Yes, thank you. I know it's a routine item, and for those who have been following along are aware that I oppose the AmeriCorps wages. So I appreciate the work and the partnership, and I also appreciate county staff's efforts for engaging with AmeriCorps, Green Corps, and in this case, MPCA. And the wages are at levels that I am not comfortable with, so I'll be voting no. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to comment on this? I just want to say that I too do not care for this. It's a federally fund issue, though, and we have very little we can do about it. And so I think that's very unfortunate. We hold ourselves to a higher standard here at the county. So all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
It's opposed by 1. Items for discussion and action is item 2B, authorize county staff to pursue 2026 state general obligation bonding appropriations. I'll move this. Do I have a second? Does anyone need any discussion on this? This is a routine item. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item is on the addendum area. This is 2C, is the 2025 Watershed Board applicants and appointments to 9 Mile Creek Watershed District Board. Just a caveat to this, my understanding is we do not have a recorded comment. There was one applicant, Larry Olson, and so I would entertain a motion just to progress this to the board.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And our final item is number 3, which is progressed. This is accelerating zero waste implementation in Minneapolis. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I think there's an R2.
Is there an R2?
R2?
I'll second the R2.
The R2. Oh, Commissioner Fernando, would you like to speak to this or just one?
No, Madam Chair, the R2, thank you for reminding. This comes through admin, but thank you for the reminder, Commissioner Anderson. This is an admin action, but it just happens to be at the same time of my own public statement. So I just wanted to acknowledge that they're separate. And it was Commissioner Edelson that requested that it be tabled to today, laid over to today for staff. And I believe that that's occurred. So I think administration is probably prepared. Thanks, Chair.
Go ahead, please, Jody.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, you have in front of you the R2 that addresses the comments that were made when the resolution was brought at the last board cycle. Assistant County Administrator for Public Works, Lisa Cerny, will provide a summary of this item.
Welcome, Ms. Cerny.
Good afternoon, Chair Gattell and Commissioners. As mentioned, my name is Lisa Cerny. I'm the Assistant County Administrator for the Public Works line of business. This item is brought by administration in response to ongoing conversations with Hennepin County cities, especially the City of Minneapolis, the annual Recycling Progress Report, and the Climate Action Board briefing last month. To achieve our mutual goal with Minneapolis, there's a need for shared responsibility and accountability to reduce waste and repurpose the HERC facility. This resolution is compliant with state statutes and our solid waste management plan. The county's climate, equity, and zero waste goals require us to transform the solid waste system. In 2021, the board defined a zero waste vision and a commitment to preventing 90% or more of all discarded material from being landfilled or incinerated. The resolving clauses in this board action describe the county's 45 years leadership on solid waste policy, including most recently the bold 2023 Zero Waste Action Plan, the plan to reinvent the solid waste system, and the 2024 Solid Waste Management Plan. In last month's climate briefing, we reviewed progress on the 12 highest impact actions and the zero waste dashboard metrics. We've made meaningful progress in the areas we directly influence, but overall progress has been incremental. This is because Hennepin County has limited control over the solid waste system, and behavior change is hard. Our success depends on alignment across the system and each partner doing their part. The county has followed through on our zero waste commitment with increased investments in policy, programming, and infrastructure. At the climate briefing, the board called for greater accountability from our state leaders and our cities, especially our largest city, Minneapolis. We cannot achieve our zero waste goals without Minneapolis implementing their zero waste plans. I also want to acknowledge some good work of Minneapolis. Minneapolis staff are dedicated, knowledgeable, and committed to zero waste. Their curbside services and collection of large items like mattresses, electronics, and appliance are top rate. They have made progress, most recently by expanding organics drop-off sites, providing grants for innovative waste reduction projects, and studying new funding mechanisms for zero waste. But we do need them to move forward on more progressive zero waste policies already outlined in their climate equity plan to achieve our shared climate and zero waste goals. In August 2024, Chair Fernando and county leadership presented to the City Council the most impactful strategies for implementing zero waste as quickly as possible in the city of Minneapolis. I'm going to highlight just a couple. 1, improving hauler reporting. 2, increasing compliance with existing ordinances. 3, advancing organized collection for commercial and multifamily sources. And 4, improving curbside recycling and organics participation. In October 2024, the City of Minneapolis passed a resolution to support the closure of HERC by December 31st, 2027. The city's resolution states that the city will implement diversion and reduction measures as quickly as possible and develop methods to track progress towards zero waste goals. In the past year, limited progress has been made on their strategies. The purpose of this resolution is to continue to push to accelerate zero waste implementation in Minneapolis. Now I'm going to describe the resolving clauses. These are actions to increase accountability by Minneapolis by requiring the city to set targets and develop plans to implement the most impactful strategies to advance climate action and zero waste goals. Since the resolution was introduced, several edits in the R2 have been made in response to feedback provided by the City of Minneapolis. The R2 clarifies requirements, narrows the scope and focus of the zero waste actions, and offers collaborative support to Minneapolis to meet these requirements. With this action, the city will establish baselines by reporting on recycling rates for the following: the residential curbside program, the commercial, institutional, and multifamily sector, and overall recycling rates for 2024. It also acknowledges that if data is not currently available, we, Hennepin County, we are requiring the city to report on the necessary steps to collect and report the data in collaboration with us. The city will also be required to report on compliance rates with 2 existing ordinances: the Green to Go and recycling at commercial building ordinances. Again, if the data is not available, we will collaborate with the city to report the necessary steps to collecting and reporting on that data. Then the city will be required to set target goals for annual recycling rates through 2030, capture rates by material types by 2030, and establish a date to initiate the statutory process for implementing organized commercial, institutional, and multifamily collection and recycling organics and trash. The county staff team will collaborate with the city to help set targets. Further, the city will be required to identify necessary resources and a timeline that address the county's 4 priorities for the city and 7 strategies the city committed to in their climate equity plan to advance zero waste and a circular economy. The date for this information is to be provided to the board has shifted back to no later than October 20th, 2025. The resolution also guides the updates of the county's residential waste reduction and recycling funding policy to include measurable performance standards be applied to cities of the first class in determining whether the city has satisfied standards to receive annual distribution of SCORE funds. This resolution simply informs county staff that will be bringing forward information on this fall and an update to the overall residential waste and waste reduction and recycling funding policy. I also want to take just a moment to share for perspective, the county is not asking Minneapolis to take action without doing our part. Hennepin County has made significant investments in zero waste and continue to support Minneapolis. The county's solid waste management fee provides a dedicated funding source that supports zero waste programs throughout Hennepin County. The county has committed significant resources to accelerating zero waste. Since 2021, you have increased the waste reduction and recycling budget by over $5 million. You have authorized hiring 9 additional FTEs, including staff, to develop new initiatives to prevent food waste, reduce single-use plastics, address long-standing disparities in access to recycling and organic services, especially in multifamily settings. The county has strengthened Ordinance 13 to include recycling and organics requirements for both the residential and commercial sectors, and we have backed up those policies with active compliance to support implementation. The county has also actively advocated for stronger state policies to advance zero waste, including extended producer responsibility for packaging. Support for Minneapolis, the county not only invests directly in county-wide waste programs, we provide funding, technical assistance, and staff support for city programs, including Minneapolis. In 2024, the county provided the city of Minneapolis $1.7 million in SCORE funding, including more than $215,000 for multifamily recycling, for multifamily recycling, and an additional $150,000 to support organics processing, and made $1.3 million in grant funding countywide, grant funding available countywide for schools, businesses, multifamily properties, community groups, food recovery, and deconstruction projects. In short, the county has made significant investments in zero waste by increasing our budget, enforcing our regulatory requirements, and advancing the actions laid out in our plans. We continue to provide support to Minneapolis through funding, technical assistance, and policy leadership. Our expectation is that the city will be a committed and collaborative partner in the implementation so that we can achieve our shared zero waste goals. With that, I will stand for any questions.
I want to thank you for that in-depth outline of all the things we're doing, but also our work with Minneapolis. Any other comments or questions? Please, go ahead, Commissioner Fernando.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just want to really be clear, this action before us is a staff action, and I'm grateful to county staff and city staff for arriving at a landing place. But just given the amount of feedback, and I really appreciate everybody engaging here, I just wanted to uplift, without hesitation, that there are distinctions between what residents are requesting and what the county's proposed and what I've supported. And I actually haven't had a chance to speak about it, but I just want to name 3 things. One, I really am concerned about the plan for trash. I've expressed that before. I'm interested in knowing where the trash that is collected at your curb, that service occurs continuously and without disruption. That is a concern, and I look forward to partnering with the city of Minneapolis to ensure that there is a non-disrupted continued services for solid waste. The second thing is about landfills. I do not support more landfills. I know that is not a popular position among some, but individually, from a waste hierarchy perspective, I don't want to be shy that I am not in favor of more landfilling, and certainly not where we don't really have the ability to even site a landfill here. And then the third is about the facility. I live about a mile or so from the HERC. I believe in a facility that the county owns and assists in operating to receive solid waste. That is my individual belief. Hennepin County is the largest county, and Minneapolis is the largest single city generator in the state of Minnesota. And so as a point of values, I do believe that a facility should exist within the Minneapolis borders, is my individual position. And so the city of Minneapolis's resolution, those are some distinction points, and I want to be upfront about that. I believe that we should have a facility I live here, I work here. I believe we should have a facility in our borders. I believe that we should maintain aspects of the energy infrastructure. I desire for Hennepin County to remain within the solid waste system, but that's up to cities to assist or allow. And I do understand there are many perspectives. I want a plan for the solid waste. I want a plan for the trash. And I look forward to working towards that outcome. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Other comments? Go ahead, Commissioner Conley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thanks to administration for working very closely with the city of Minneapolis. Bringing forward the R2 today, I have several issues with the R2, and I'll explain. But I want to start with the letter that we got from the city that said that many requirements in the original resolution were not feasible for the city. The letter specifically calls for concluding the city's HERC contract in February, and that would be a potential loss to access for the HERC for Minneapolis waste incineration. The city talked about, Margaret Anderson Kelleher talked about the financial impacts. Canceling the city's waste delivery agreement as proposed would force Minneapolis to pay more expensive contract rates. Eliminating access to the HERC altogether would force Minneapolis to dispose of waste in landfills outside of the county. Either way, she says, disposal costs and fees would go directly to the consumer and increase by about 60%, which she did some math, was around $4 per resident. She talks again about environmental impacts, etc. Now, mind you, this is all coming after the city's resolution that supported closure of the HERC. In the R2, it talks about how, like, the four main categories, Ms. Cerny, that you just called out. One of them is improve curbside recycling and organics participation. We just had a climate briefing that said the participation in Minneapolis is high. A lot of people have green cards. It was the usage is low. So I don't think that they need to improve in participation. The focus should be on who is putting what in the organics recycling bins and how the city is going to incentivize that, how we could perhaps help. But I don't know that increased participation just broadly like that is matching what we saw at our climate briefing. I also want to add that there's things that I've talked with. So as most folks know, my district is just the city of Minneapolis and Fort Snelling. And what I've heard from council members and residents is, why isn't our recycling picked up every week? Why is it picked up every 2 weeks? There's a lot of council members who have shared support for something like that, low-hanging fruit. What does that mean for haulers? So improving hauler reporting, increasing compliance with existing ordinances, advancing organics collection for commercial and multifamily sector waste, et cetera, These are things that have, I think, always been within our priorities and with our plans for several years now. It's just that this resolution says that the city hasn't been responsive to that. So again, when we had the first version of this resolution, it was there was the possibility that we could just say, Minneapolis, we can't do business with you if you can't meet our standards or meet the investments that we've made towards zero waste. So I guess there's another piece of this R2 that talks about evaluating mandatory organics program participation for city serviced properties to start in 2040. Now, if I recall correctly, when we approved our solid waste plan, it was an amendment that made the closure date as early as 2028, and I believe I brought that amendment forward. I don't think 2040 is reasonable at all. I think that if we are going to add a bullet point here to evaluate organics program participation for city service properties, that shouldn't start in 2040. That should start in 2027, which is according, the bullet that I'm looking at, it says action FZW.5.2, evaluate mandatory organics program participation for city service properties to start in 2040. That should start next year. I mean, according to the city's own resolution, right? So I don't support that bullet. And then the next bullet reads, allocate resources. We already do that. Hire a consultant to resource organics recycling programs. And who's going to pay for that? Is the city going to pay for that? Because I don't know that we need a consultant. We've got so much information on what we've learned that we could share with the city, and that's part of the technical assistance that we could provide them. The next is the support Hennepin County Ordinance 13 requirements by adopting an ordinance requiring certain food generators to divert food scraps from trash. So this is something that I think is a suggestion to the city. How will we hold them accountable to that? And then what does accountability look like for that specific bullet point? Because in my opinion, that's something that I would think should already be happening if we're trying to divert. And according to this letter from the leadership at the city of Minneapolis, that's their whole goal in that resolution, is to reach diversion by 2027, 2033, that timeline. But this doesn't have a timeline in it. So I get that we need to establish reporting guidelines for cities, especially the biggest city in this county. How does this bullet give me accountability that we will get data that we need? We'll know that they have a robust plan to divert food scraps, how they're going to do it. Are they going to go bold? Are we going to fine big food producers in Minneapolis, which is 75%? What is it? It's the biggest part of that 75% chunk. 22% is consumers, 53%, thank you, is our big businesses. So I have several questions about this R2, but it doesn't meet the standards that I have heard from residents. It doesn't meet the standards that I've heard from just our standards, right? And it doesn't meet what we need to do to reach the earliest possible closure, which is 2028. I'm not seeing the urgency that I would expect coming from the city. I know that we've done our due diligence and have worked with the legislature. We've got big bills passed. We've got more to pass next session. And I'm just having a hard time with the R2. It seems like we're taking a couple steps back to give the city more time. And I don't know that we need to do that. So there's some questions in there, Ms. Cerny, but also I don't know if I'm comfortable supporting the R2 as written. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Chair Gattell, Commissioner Conley, there were many questions, and I know I'm not going to get all of them, and so feel free to interrupt me if I miss some of them. But maybe let me just start with where the R2 came from. The R2, the modifications that were included were through numerous conversations with Minneapolis, and the intent is really to start getting some of those numbers, understand where they are, understand where their targets are, and work with them to develop programs that can be accelerated in an intentional and focused way in order to achieve our joint matching, our aligned goals on closure of HERC in an accelerated way. I understand maybe from accountability, what does this say? And maybe what I would say is right now we need the data in order to figure out some of those details.
Commissioner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we have data, though. We have data. We know how much waste they're producing. We know how much of that waste is organics. We know how much of it is recyclable. We have some data. What we don't have is what the city is not reporting on, which is annual collection, multifamily units, et cetera. That's something that they need to work on. But how long do we have to wait for that?
Chair Gattell, Commissioner Conley, the date in here is October 20th of this calendar year. And so then once we have that information by this calendar year, then you and we and they can make more informed decisions on, it's budget time. And so there can be conversations around what could get added, amended, modified from either their budget or our budget perspective in order to take actions on the specific number, or maybe it's the compliance rate or that type of action. That was kind of the thinking behind the October 20th, 25 date, could then inform budget conversations, budget decisions. That impacts, staffing resources, it impacts program capacity. That was the driver of the date.
Follow-up?
I do, but I'll yield the floor for a second. I'm still thinking. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Lundy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Trying to think how to phrase it. So the first time when we thought we brought forth the bar, which Commissioner Conley, Fernando, and I brought forward, we talked about establishing the shutdown for the HERC by the 2040. We established plans and stuff. We engaged with the suburbs. We asked their feedback. We got letters. We got input. And I feel like suddenly we're just all about Minneapolis, and there was no engagement with suburbs in this because they had opinions on the shutdown of the HERC. Did I always agree with them? No. Did I think that they were kind of skipping some stuff? Yes. But there was lots of letters, lots of feedback. Every city manager got a letter from us saying, hey, we want your opinion. We're thinking about this. Anything that we do in Minneapolis to shut down the HERC does, by definition, shut down the HERC for the entire county. And I want that goal, but I just feel like we're missing 2/3 of the county in this conversation. Like, if it's so important that Minneapolis do this, and why wouldn't the other 2/3 also have to do it? I mean, is trash that's developed in Brooklyn Park, Plymouth, Eden Prairie, Bloomington, isn't it the same importance of we should know what's going on elsewhere? And so that's my problem. And my worry is Brooklyn Park has the only transfer station. As of right now, despite all our plans and our ideas, it is the only transfer station. Is trash going to start going there? When Minneapolis, which historically doesn't act upon these things, suddenly have to do the moment, because this is just asking them to collect data and do compliance, we're still going to get to the moment where what are you going to do with your trash? And I'm afraid they're going to ship it right through my district on their way to Elk River or wherever the landfill is. And so the end result is either it lands in Brooklyn Park as passing through all my cities, or it goes through my cities on the way to Elk River. So I think this, even though it's really focused on Minneapolis, the effects of whatever the outcome of Minneapolis includes 2/3 of the county that is not at the table, not reflected in this. And that's just kind of where I'm at, is there are so much things, I think, if we're going to talk about waste and all this, that we have to have a countywide plan. This is not a countywide plan. I don't trust that when dollars comes down to it, that we're going to get what I believe will have to be 4 transfer stations if we're going to go landfilling, or if we're going to do recycling or composting. I believe those 4 transfer stations actually need to be sorting facilities, so that I think you have older apartments in Minneapolis. My district has them where they were never built to do anything but collect trash. Now we have recycling. Now we want composting, that they are just physically incapable of collecting all that materials in a manner. And so there's just a lot of stuff that I believe needs to happen. I believe our goal should be to have sorting facilities so that we can get to the point where we sort as much trash as we can out. But it's got to be, I think it's got to be 4 sites. I think it's got to be Brooklyn Park. It's got to be somewhere south. I'll just say Edina because somebody asked me why not Edina, and I think that's a fair question. Why not Edina? Somewhere out west, maybe on Lake Minnetonka, if we're going to pick sites that'll cause everyone to panic. And then, because guess what? My city is no less important than Edina or the lakes of Minnetonka. And so if trash is going to come to my city, it can sure the hell go to other places that we would never think of sending trash. And so, and I think there needs to be one in Minneapolis too. I just don't see how we're going to do this. And I think that needs to be our plan, and it will cost money. But I do bristle when I think about people laughing about sending it to some cities, but it's okay to send it to mine. And I think that kind of thing really ticks me off when I say that out loud. And I know that's exactly how people think. So I'll yield. Thank you.
Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I fully agree with the idea of we need a countywide, like we have developed a countywide plan that encompasses everything. I think this action being so focused on Minneapolis kind of misses some of that mark. I have a little bit of a problem with just so focused on reporting of what garbage is out there. Garbage is the problem. I mean, we can't afford to landfill it. Commissioner Fernando, I completely agree with you. Landfilling is not the answer. It cannot be the answer. We need to reduce the amount of garbage that we are creating so that we don't have landfilling and we don't have the necessity of the HERC. Like, that is where we need to be working on, and reporting on how much garbage is coming from apartments versus how much is coming from whatever. If we don't do something statewide, federally, locally, at the big levels where garbage is being really created, then we are just twiddling around the edges and threatening to pull funding if a city doesn't do doesn't report the way we want it to. It doesn't feel quite right to me. I mean, I know that we need them as partners, and SCORE funding is a kind of a small piece of how we get that, but it doesn't feel exactly right. And I know we're going to have to deal with every single city looking at this and evaluating whether or not they are going to partner with us at some point in our goals of reducing garbage. And so I'm really concerned about the direction that this takes us, and the fact that it is so limited to Minneapolis and reporting. I feel like we need to do so much more to get us to a point where we are reducing the amount of garbage collected. I fully agree with the sorting facilities. We need to have those. We need to be investing in those so that we can start splitting up the garbage, making it easier for consumers and apartment people who are living in multifamily units that were not designed to collect and sort and have multiple collection units. We need to be creating the facilities that are going to sort them on the back end. I think that's where we need to go so that recycling and sorting can be made easier for residents and that there are fewer hurdles. Is it going to cost money? Yeah, it's going to cost a lot of money. And we need to have the state agreeing and bringing that forward. I think we need to be advocating at the legislature to get us there. I mean, that was part of our bonding request that we just approved, is making sure that we have some repurposed money for a pre-sort facility. We got to double down on that. So anyways, thank you, Madam Chair.
And back to Commissioner Conley. I know you were trying to gather your thoughts.
I was. Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that. And
Chair Gattell,
go ahead, Ms.
Commissioner
Sarni.
Conley, if I might just speak a little bit to Commissioner Anderson's, and I apologize for interrupting, but I just wanted to really share the reason why this resolution really focuses on the data is that we as staff really rely on the data and what information or what types of material are in the trash so that we can be really intentional about building specific programs and identifying education to support behavior change, because each person, each space, each place kind of sometimes requires a personal touch point, I might say. And so that's really the value of the data that we're looking for and the partnership with the city so that we can prioritize and focus on specific programs, specific compliance, specific action in order to make that progress. So I wanted to just share the value of the data is really important to us as staff as we're making and bringing forward those pieces. I also just want to highlight that historically, it is not uncommon for the county board to have passed a resolution seeking the city of Minneapolis to take action on this topic. In 2011, the county board took action requiring the city of Minneapolis to provide single sort recycling for that action to take place. Also in October 2014, the county board took action requiring the city to implement organics recycling. And so I want to just share that this action is maybe not unprecedented from a county board, county staff bringing forward an action requesting that. I also want to share that the county staff works with what we call recycling coordinators throughout the county in each city. And those interactions and that engagement is different because we know that cities have a different relationship with residents, and so therefore we support them in kind of those individual sort of approaches. So I just wanted to just share a little bit more background information on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sarni. Commissioner Conley.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Cerny, for that additional information. I just wanted to point out that, you know, the reason this is so focused on Minneapolis is because Minneapolis is the biggest producer of waste in Hennepin County. I think our solid waste plan that we approved 2 years ago is for all cities, all 45 cities in our county. It is the guideline that we will use to work with all 45 cities. One of those cities brings 75% of waste to the HERC, and most of what goes to the HERC doesn't need to be in the HERC. What is it, 50%, 60%? There's a very high number of organic waste and recyclable material that goes into this burner that's being burned. It doesn't need to. So 60? 30. Okay, it's still a lot. It's still a lot. But the majority of what's going into the HERC is coming from one city. So I want to stress that's why this particular action, not our overall plan, because we have a plan and it's solid, pun intended. But this resolution in and of itself focuses so much on Minneapolis, and what they need to do is because of that high usage of what's going in. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that I don't support landfilling either. I want clean air and I want clean water. And increasing landfilling doesn't get us clean water. I want to do both. Commissioner Anderson, you mentioned it. I think we can get there. We just have to be bold and unapologetic about accountability. Reporting. I understand the need for data. We are a data-driven county. I get it. But can we mandate weekly pickup of recycling instead of biweekly if we mandated it in the first place? Can we say that the city of Minneapolis must pick up recycling every week rather than every 2 weeks? And then I also want to push back on this narrative of behavior change because it is a part of it. But as a consumer, I throw away what I get. So there's a chain, right? There's the producer who is packaging things, and there's big box retailers. There's all the things where a couch comes in a box. It's wild. So the people are on the receiving end of what the producers are putting out there, right? And yet we are the ones that have to recycle and make sure our food, it's composted, all of the things. I want to hold those producers just as, if not more, responsible than we are the people and the behavior change. Who's working on behavior change with the big producers of food scraps and food waste, the big producers of packaging waste? All of that's going into the HERC, and it doesn't need to be. So the behavior change on the consumer, I'm not as pressed about that as I am about the behavior change of our biggest waste producers in Hennepin County, that the majority of which are in the city of Minneapolis. So I want to clarify that this is about the city because of how much of what's in the HERC comes from the city. And all 45 cities are a part of the overall plan, the solid waste plan that we approved to close this thing as early as 2028. And I want to work with all of those cities on what is specific to their needs that would reduce significantly their reliance on burning their trash. Because we don't want to continue to do that beyond 2028, as early as 2028. So, I think I'll add one other thing, and that's that no other city in this county passed a resolution that supported a closure date earlier than ours. The city of Minneapolis did that. They supported a closure date of 2027. I don't recall any other city moving a resolution like that, right? So we want to hold them to that. Because that means, again, we're aligned on the earliest possible closure of the HERC. So then that brings me back to the resolving clauses, which are about that reporting, right? So I support the October 20th date for them to give us something. I support that. And I don't support, I think the bullet I called out about evaluate mandatory organics program participation for the city by 2040, I think we should just scrap that. But I think that I can wait until October 10th for something from the city that will give us an idea of what their reporting might look like. But I also want to go harder. And I'm thankful to the people that show up today. I'm thankful for people who reach out to me personally about this issue because it matters. It cares. I think Hennepin County has a value of making sure our residents have clean air and clean water and a clean environment. And there's so much that goes into that when you have a behemoth like the HERC fully operational, right? Without really bold action coming from one city in particular. And I don't feel any kind of way about calling out Minneapolis, considering that's my constituency. And I work very closely with the council who have been in support of our solid waste plan, who have been in support of what we're trying to do by 2028. I just think that the R2 gives a lot of push towards reporting, which I know we need. But again, I think that most of this could be solidified after October 20th, when we hear from them. And again, I don't want anything that says 2040 on it. I think that they could do something about organics and increasing or mandatory organics program participation for the city service properties to start in 2040. That's something that can be done next year. I don't see why that would take till 2040. And additionally, yes, we are in a budget season. They are in a budget season too. I think the city has already set their levy. What is in that might include increases to zero waste participation, et cetera. So hopefully that's part of what we receive on October 10th. As this is written, though, I don't think I could support it. I can support getting information back by the city, from the city by October 10th. And I understand what we're doing. But I think that I would be better informed if what you see on October 20th is enough to make substantial change within what the city is currently doing. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Lundy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just going to comment when Commissioner Conley was talking about the track and stuff. I do think it would be really nice if we're embarking on this too. I would love to know if my recycling from Brooklyn Park goes to a recycling center. I'd like to know if my composting from Brooklyn Park goes to a composting center. I put it in the right bins. I track out and figure out what goes where, but I'm curious, does it actually end up? Because when I hear people, sometimes they're saying that some of that stuff ends up in regular trash. And so I would just be curious, and I don't mean just Brook and Park. I'd like us to do a spot check. I've asked us every time about doing this program to just see, because I think, wouldn't we want to know if we're doing all this stuff recycling and the stuff's ending up in the landfill anyway? And maybe it's not, but if we can't get information for producers, there is a way. You get volunteers to have trackers put it in their trash and see where it ends up at, and you will find out where it goes. And maybe we might find out that there's a hauler that's not doing what they're supposed to do. I don't know. Haulers always tell me the value in recycling is in the cans. It's not in the plastic. And so that's what they really want is the cans. And so that's just something I think if we're talking about tracking things, I've always wanted to know if, and I guess I should just buy some air tags and throw it in there one day and see where they end up. But that spot check, I think, is something we should do as a county all the time, just to see, is everybody doing it? And trusting people, I think, is always, verification is important. Thanks.
Commissioner Fernando.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, does it seem prudent to progress this item to the September 9th board meeting?
I don't know if we should do that, but I would like to comment first.
Oh, yeah, of
before we
course,
do
gosh.
that. I haven't had a chance to comment. Now I'll go back to you. So we all have a lot to say about this. You know, Minneapolis is the most impacted. They're also the most vocal. And yes, they passed a resolution to ask the HERC to close sooner. And I think they need to step up to the plate to be the leader then. And we're trying to figure out how we help them do that. And sometimes, and we've had a lot of conversations, we're not getting as far as we'd like. Cities have a lot of power. I was a sitting mayor, so was Commissioner Lundy. You have a lot of power to make a lot of ordinances, to change a lot of things on the policy side. They could do this. It's a choice. Now, if you're the citizens who are asking for this, ask your council members to pass these ordinances. I sit on your representative as on the Partnership of Waste and Energy. We have a list of like 20 to 25 different laws we'd like. We got the packaging waste one through. We have electronics and all kinds of things. We have about plastics and everything. We need these kinds of things, but they could be doing things at the local level too. It's a choice. It's a choice. Now, if they mean what they say, then they need to do it. All the score dollars that come in through the county, every single penny goes back out the door to all the cities that work on this stuff. We don't take any of those dollars. Now, the state has cut that. Tell the state to fully fund that. That really matters if they want us to do this. I believe in sorting facilities. How are you going to pay for that? Well, if you're cutting score funding and other funding to these, you can't fund this. You know, and so I do believe in that. And I believe our suburbs are doing things too. But I also believe that not all cities are being compliant with getting the data in and pushing their haulers to do the data. We had a briefing and we had some data on there. There were holes because there was just no reporting. So that's a problem. That's a problem. And we can only go so long and say, this is not just a problem. We can't keep incentivizing you. We need you to do something. So we need disincentives. And so that's part of the picture. That's why I see this as a part of the solution. So I think there's more work to be done. I think, too, I know I have spent time talking to my suburbs about this particular bar that we're pushing forward and everything like this. And I'm going to tell you they're concerned because they don't know where their trash is going to go either. And so I think they all want to be a part of the solution. But we haven't done enough outreach to let the suburbs know that we're doing this. And that's a concern, to make sure that they're all on board and that they know about it and that they're also going to be looking at this. And maybe they all need to sit down together and start talking together. But this is going to push and move something. And Minneapolis needs to step up just like every other city. So I do believe this is right-minded to move something similar to this forward, and I would certainly entertain a progress motion to keep working on this together. But I was going to go to Conley, and then I can go back to you.
Madam Chair, I was just going to move the progress motion.
Okay, I'm going to go to Commissioner Anderson before you move it.
I could be supportive of the progress. I'm wondering, given the amount of discussion on this, if a return to staff or do we have enough time? I suppose we have 2 weeks, don't we? Or 3 weeks?
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I may, September 9th is the next meeting, so there is a number of weeks. And especially with the R2's date of October 20th, this at least keeps it in this cycle. This would have had to be ratified by board anyway. That was the logic. I mean,
Good idea.
I mean, yeah,
We
that's
can always do something more if we need to, but we could, okay, I'll entertain the progress.
Move to progress.
Do I have a second? Okay, it's been moved and seconded on the progress motion. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. And that concludes our agenda.
Good afternoon. I'll call to order the Human Services Committee on this Tuesday, August 19th. I am Vice Chair Angela Conley. Our chair could not be with us today. The first item of business is to approve the minutes from the previous meeting, which was held August 5th. Is there a motion? The minutes have been moved. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Any corrections or comments on the minutes? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes have passed. We have one routine item. 2A is our Human Services and Public Health Resolution. This includes contracts and amendments to contracts with providers. This is Report 2512. I'll move that if there's a second.
Second.
Item has been moved and seconded. Any questions about those contracts? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item passes. We have one item, it appears, for discussion and action. That's item 2B. This is a service level agreement with Hennepin Health System supporting the Hennepin Emergency Medical Services Program. We are adding $170,658. That's $170,658. That's a supplemental appropriation to the HSPH 25 budget. Is there a motion to bring that before us?
so moved.
Item has been moved and seconded. ACA Murphy. Wait, Deputy Murphy. Wow.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, the bar you have before you would provide additional funding to fund a service level agreement that was earlier approved between the county and Hennepin Healthcare System. It would fund the addition of 2 limited full-time social workers at Hennepin Healthcare System's Emergency Medical Services Program. The positions would support residents who are high utilizers of the emergency department at Hennepin Healthcare System, those who often have complex needs for mental health and substance use disorder. The arrangement will allow HHS to leverage the combination of the hospital and health system's clinical expertise, the infrastructure of Hennepin County Human Services, and a variety of community resources. In addition to serving residents better, it would help reduce the volume of need represented in the ED. Hennepin Healthcare System would cover 100% of the cost and is receiving support directly from the federal government, Substance Use and Mental Health Services Administration for its share. If you have questions, Madam Chair, Commissioners, we have Leah Kaiser available.
Wonderful, thank you. Social workers save lives. Colleagues, questions or comments? Commissioner Fernando?
Yeah, just a quick comment. They do save lives. There's a social worker up here, so just wanted to mention that. What's really favorable about this is it is not dissimilar from what we're doing with public safety, noting that a health response and a public safety response really intersect at these complex needs for our residents. And so we've known for a long time that people will show up at 911 either on the criminal legal side, the public safety side, or in our emergency rooms. And so this mirroring of our embedded social worker program is a really logical and data-supported solution, and I'm excited to support it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Other comments or questions? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item passes, and I will declare us adjourned.
I will call to order our Public Works Committee for today. Our first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of our August 5th meeting. May I have a motion and a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additions or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved. Our first item, we have two routine items. Our first item is an agreement with the MPCA to host AmeriCorps members from the Minnesota Green Corps Environment and Energy Land and Water Unit, period of 10/8/25 to 9/4/26. This is really the same as our previous action, but just in a different part of our agreements, separating out this vote, but I think we've probably had our comments on this. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
That item is approved with one no. Item 2B is an authorization to acquire right-of-way by direct purchase or condemnation for various transportation projects. This is a routine item to advance our work while we are improving our roadways and making our public works work.
I'll move it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions on the details of our acquisitions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That item is approved, and with that, our agenda is concluded.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll call to order the Resident Service Committee of Tuesday, August 19th at 2:55. I'm Vice Chair Debbie Gotelsteny in for Chair Heather Edelson, who could not be with us today. Our first order of business is to approve the minutes from the February 4th. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Any corrections or changes? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have one routine item for discussion and action before us today. Can I get a motion for this, 2A?
I'll move it.
Been moved and seconded. It is an amendment to an agreement with Q-Matic Corporation for software and services extending the end date to December 31st of 2026 with a not to exceed of $32,000 for a new total, a not to exceed of $449,000. Does anybody need a description or question on this? It's a routine item. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Being no further comments or questions, I'll conclude the Resident Services Committee. We are adjourned. Thank you.